Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Online Warriors podcast. As ever, I am Illeagle 86, one of your three hosts, and I am joined by my very good friends, Techtic and Nerdbomber. Is it Nerd, first name Nerd, last name Bomber, or full Nerdbomber?
No,
I know
it's all one word. This is actually from Full House. If anybody doesn't know this was something that was on the OG Full House.
In Full House, was the E a 3? Because your E is a 3.
No, my E is not a 3. It's just a regular E.
Your E is not a 3? Okay, your E used to be a 3, though.
No, the
really?
website we used to be on was a 3, but it's not anymore. It was never my name.
Was it ever a double 3? Was it like N3, Nerdbomb, and then like
no
3 No? Yeah, it's too many 3s. I thought about putting a 3 in. I never did it though. I already had numbers. I figured just stick with letters. Stick with the original pun. We are here to talk about all things nerd this week. We have a couple of pieces of video game news. We have a new trailer to talk about for a Gladiator RPG. It just dropped today. This is one of our hotter scoops. The day that we're recording this, we're talking about a launch trailer that just dropped, and the game launches in Steam Early Access today. So we'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about a game that I think all three of us have played that's getting a sequel. That is, of course, Control 2. And we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite Pokemon trainer. Well, I don't know. Is Ash Ketchum your guys' favorite Pokemon trainer? I have
Red
in this race.
I mean, yeah, he's cool. He's a cool guy.
He's a cool hat.
No, but Red is everyone's true favorite. Ash is kind of a goof. Red is the BAMF.
I remember when I watched the show for the very brief time that I did, I was a big fan of Brock. Remember Brock?
Brock kind of reminds me of you, honestly.
Are you as horny as Brock always was?
That's why he reminds me of him.
Brock was always horny? I don't remember that.
Yeah, so horny.
Like really horny? Like
yes.
For Misty?
No, for
everyone.
Nurse
like if they
Joy
breathe
and
for Pokemon?
Jenny.
No, women.
What?
If they had a pulse,
I don't know.
He was like, "Oh my gosh."
I no longer like Brock. It happened so fast. I guess I'm Team Ash.
Tracy was pretty cool too. He was one of the originals in the second kind of go around.
Who were the guys from Team Rocket?
Jesse and James.
What are their names? Were they
and Meowth?
That's right.
Are they ever are they misunderstood ever, or are they just full on bad?
No, they're 100% misunderstood. They're like, their whole arc was probably the most interesting part about like the first couple of seasons. They really just chef's kiss on like their background, their hard knock life. Just if you don't know about Jesse and James, you got to look into Jesse and James.
Wait, they had a hard knock life?
Yeah.
Weren't they like rich?
James came from a rich family, but it was like neglected. And then Jesse wanted to be a Nurse Joy. She was supposed to be a Nurse Joy, but she kind of like failed out of it and like had to find her own path.
She probably didn't want to change her name.
So we have a good thing going here. So I was gonna do the old video game bread with the Pokemon sandwich, but let's go full Pokemon to start. Let's talk about this. Ash Ketchum has finally become the world's greatest Pokemon trainer. Now that's the headline. My immediate question seeing this headline was, okay, but he has to have like done this before, right? Like his show's been on for 25 years.
He's been a champion before, but he hasn't been a world champion. And that's the difference.
So it's not, yeah, and by the way, like the article, when I clicked it immediately told me this is the first time ever that and I love the way they phrase it here, the perpetual 10-year-old Ash Ketchum finally has become the world's greatest Pokemon trainer after 25 years. Like, I think this is really interesting. And like, even as someone who, as I'm sure any of the regular listeners know, is well outside of the Pokemon ecosystem, like, I love this from a narrative questions perspective. And also, like, I don't know, like, I think most people probably think of Pokemon, even people on the outside like me, think about it as sport. Right, like it is a sport. It is a sport that's enjoyed and spectated, and people have favorite trainers, and they root for. It's much like soccer or whatever. And one of the best things about professional sports is parity, like the fact that any team can win at all times. Right. So after 25 years, you would think this kid would win, and lo and behold, he does.
Well, I want to be clear also that it's not 25 years of him trying. It was 8 regions that he was trying in. So it's not year over year. He just sucks. It's there's a culmination of seasons throughout each region. It was a total of 8 different regions. So it's not 25 years of being terrible. It's building up to each region's final bout and, either placing or kind of making it part of the way, almost making it, or just not at all.
I love the narrative question, though. I'm sure the narrative drive of the Pokemon show for the last however long has been, how can Ash become a world champion? How can he become the very best that ever was? Now that he at least arguably is, where does he go from here? Like, I just think that's a very exciting jumping off point for the, and like so many shows have encountered that same territory and have dealt with it. Right?
Oh, this is easy. This is an easy answer.
Oh, okay.
Are you ready?
By all means.
Is everyone sitting down? If you're listening, I hope you're sitting down for this. He turns 11.
Oh my God, yes. They throw him a birthday party. That would be fantastic.
Is there evidence to suggest that after all this time, he did they like casually throw in like after 24 years of the show being on, like, hey Ash, you're still 10. Do you want to go? Is he very like definitively still 10? Like he hasn't aged at all.
I don't actually know if they've kind of made this joke. I've been kind of touch and go with the actual series, just keeping up on like, hey, did he win this go? Hey, did he win this go? I didn't really watch every single episode because, you know, an adult and stuff. But I really hope they wrap it up with that. I think that would be just fantastic. Now, I do want to, because people are probably, you know, I mentioned the regions, and I do want to take note of kind of where he placed in each region. So the first one was the Kanto region. He only made top 16. Then that followed up with the Johto region, and he was top 8. Then the Hoenn region, he was also top 8. Then he improved in the Sinnoh region at top 4. But then when he went to the Unova region, back down to top 8. And then the Kalos region, runner-up. And then it wasn't until the artist started to like forget how to draw in the Aloha region, he made it to championship, but I didn't like that one. It just, the art style bothered me. And then it wasn't until now we're at the Gala region when he is world champion officially. So championships.
Is the art style back to normal?
It's still a little weird, but it's much better than the previous region. And honestly, I watched the final battle, and it was done fantastic. They had the shading and the darkness and like the heart pumping moment. They did a really good job on the art style of this final battle. And if you haven't seen it, again, check it out. It'll make you proud if you grew up with the show.
What I would want to see, and I know that Ash Ketchum is like a staple of the series now for 25 years, Ash and Pikachu, and they're never going to get rid of them. But I would almost like to see, like, maybe not necessarily him taking a back burner, but maybe even like a spin-off show where it's a little bit more adult. You have a different set of main characters. Because one of the things that I feel like the main Pokemon show has always done is kind of focus on that kid-centricness of Ash Ketchum, because he is perpetually 10 and is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, even though there's like dark stuff like Team Rocket going on in the background. I would love to see maybe like a spin-off now that, you know, the show's been on for 25 years. Ash Ketchum finally won. I want to follow somebody a little bit older. I want to have something in like the vein of Arcane or something like that, but set in the Pokemon universe. I think that'd be super cool.
If there's a spin-off, I think it should be a kid that starts off as a Team Rocket member and like goes through that whole thing so that we can see the complete and total opposite end of the spectrum. That'd be the only way to do it right. Otherwise, it would feel like something that's just trying to live in the, like, replace Ash Ketchum and live in the same shadow of that. And it would never measure up, in my opinion. You'd have to do something Rocket-esque to really be something new and original.
So you guys want darkness. In particular, Nerdbomber, it sounds like you want a...
Well, but doing a Team Rocket...
More jaded, like, go ahead.
But doing a Team Rocket doesn't have to be dark. That's why Jesse and James was so well received, is because they had depth. They were really well-rounded characters. There was darkness all throughout Ash's story. All throughout it. I mean, for example, you know, Brock, we brought him up originally. He was abandoned by his father, and his father went off to do his own thing, but like he had to take care of his brothers, and that sucks. And so there was always darkness in the show.
Let me continue my education on the show, because I haven't watched it in so long. Do Pokemon ever die? Because they're fighting all the time. Do any of them die?
I mean, Ash dies. He's died a bunch.
Ash dies in the show?
Yeah. Even in the...
No, not in the show, in the movies.
He died a couple times.
Oh, that's right. There is that episode where he's a ghost. Weird.
How does he die? What, does he come back?
Well, Mewtwo killed him, and then the power of friendship brought him back.
I want, and where I'm going with this, I want Pikachu, just in terms of like the emotional manipulation potential of it, I want Pikachu to either die or retire. I think the latter. I mean, I want the positive emotion. Pikachu deserves to retire at this point. Pikachu's been through so much. He or she needs to move on. Should be allowed to move on. So that's what I want for...
Well, there was a gritty fan-made Pokemon where Pikachu is murdered and he's like going after the head of the trainer Ash is now going after the head of who like runs the tournaments things to end Pokemon battles. So there's a fun side dark story there.
I think it might feel weird now for the show to kind of continue the way it always has if we've reached this kind of high watermark. But maybe I'm wrong. They can just say, hey, we're going to keep doing the same thing we've done because it's successful. I do wonder, additionally, and maybe you guys can speak to this. The new games are coming out imminently. Is the timing of this intentional?
I think there's no relation to the timing of this. The games have never really tied into the series. It's just been kind of a region thing. You get exposed to your region with your own custom character, and it's independent of what Ash is doing on his thing. I mean, that's why when you ask, is Ash your favorite? And I said red. Red is what Pokemon Red and Blue was made from. It was Pokemon Red and Blue. It was made from those characters.
Right. Last question that I have. If not becoming world champion, is the end point of Pokemon for Ash Ketchum to truly catch them all? Because if it is, I'm going to go ahead and say the show will never end. It's not possible.
I don't think anymore, and I don't think it ever was. His whole thing was to be a Pokemon master. And I know the tagline is gotta catch them all, but I think from Ash's standpoint, that was never really the goal. I think that was a nice to have. But throughout the series, there have been instances where he lets Pokemon go because, he's befriended them and they want to be wild, and he lets them go on their way. He's had the opportunity to catch legendary Pokemon and hasn't. So I don't think he is really on the gotta catch them all collector path, which is what makes this so interesting because, winning it all was the end goal for him for so long. But that said, there's always new regions. So as long as there's a new region, the show will never end.
What I want is an ESPN 30 for 30 about his rise to Pokemon World Champion status.
I agree. And they need to wrap it up with the fact that Mr. Mime's his real dad.
Say what?
Oh yeah, there's a ton of I need to. Just this one thing I always loved about Ash Ketchum is there's a ton of evidence that Ash isn't human, that he's like part Mr. Mime because Mr. Mime's always hanging out with his moms and his dad's never around, so one could allude because he's humanoid. And the key evidence, and you've seen this, you can even put aside all of the other things that you might not have seen in the Pokemon franchise. The Pokemon Mewtwo movie, okay? Mewtwo was so intimidated by Ash that he felt the need to put up a barrier when he went to punch him. Ash is ripped. He's a Pokemon, and he's got crazy strength. He was going to Mega Punch Mewtwo.
This strikes me as like a Jar Jar Binks is a Sith Lord level theory. Meaning
it's founded. So is Jar Jar Binks as a Sith Lord. But that's another.
There's a lot of evidence on that. Yeah. That's a different, you're right, it's a totally different topic, but it seems like it's on the same plane of existence of would be totally crazy, insane, definitely isn't true, but has a lot of evidence that can be pulled out of the source material to support it, which is, I think that's very interesting. It's like the nice version and not at all harmful version of conspiracy theories, which in real life, in my opinion, are very, very harmful. But we congratulate Ash Ketchum on his major victory. We wish him all the best going forward. I guess, according to this article, he may be moving on to this Paldea region.
Yeah, that's where the new ones are coming out of, the next new games. So like I said, it's tied to the regions, but it's not really ever tied to his story. So we all expected that because of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet coming out. But yeah, where they're going to go with it, I think his story's ended. I think they can wrap it up, put a little bow on it, and call it a Disney.
And bring in Brock and turn it into a dating show. Wouldn't that be something? Or 30 for 30. I really do want that. I don't really care about Pokemon that much, but I would totally watch that just for the interest value of it.
For the record, Brock in Love is Blind would be Shane. Every person he's talking to, well, you're so hot. You sound so hot.
Have you still not watched the third season of Love is Blind yet?
No, we have not.
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit off the air. It is now over. That season is concluded. There's some juicy stuff. It's Love is Blind. Do you know what you're going to get? If ever you watch it, let's talk about it because it's pretty intense stuff. Let's move on. Let's talk about Gladiators. Not the movie, not the Gladiator movie, which actually I've never seen. That's a fun fact about me. I feel like I'm exactly the person who should have seen Gladiator and probably loved it, but I just never got around to it. Maybe that's not a fun fact. I mean, maybe you're like, wow, what's your problem? But that's me. We who are about to die which is an interesting title for a game. Officially launched today in Steam Early Access. We got an official launch trailer for this game. This is an action roguelike RPG game where you are, you guessed it, a gladiator. A lot of custom loadouts, very interesting physics simulated combat system. And the first question that I have for the two of you, I'm not sure either of you can answer this because I know I certainly can't. In the trailer, they talk about roguelite gameplay with a T. In the blurb I'm reading, I'm seeing action roguelike with a K. Which is it? Do they mean the same thing? Do they mean different things? Is my brain melting out of my ears? I don't like roguelite/roguelike. It stresses me out as a gameplay thing. But with that said, this looks amazing. I think this has a great vibe. I think it looks like it has a great weight. It looks like a video game that kind of plays like a board game, and I mean that very positively in a lot of ways. But I'll turn it over to you guys for what you thought about this, whether you're going to get this, because the sad thing for me is that it doesn't look like it's a console game, at least not yet. So I'm on the outs looking in on this one.
So I was not a fan of the combat. The way that it looked like it was executed is very contingent on the way in which you sort of point your cursor around. So it looks like it was really optimized for PC. The other thing is, if you were to use a controller, would that be this thing that you're constantly kind of having to position while hitting it? Whereas,
well, I think it would be kind of like a fighting game in that scenario where, how when you're, pressing different button combos in the direction in which you have your stick.
You're squiggly squaggling with the control stick.
I think it would probably be
but you can
similar
generally lock on to enemies, so you don't need to squiggly squaggle as you see. And then it's
a technical term, by the way.
It seems kind of clunky of a combat style to me. So that was my first turn off on this game. The customization, you guys know I'm a simp for, as the kids are saying. But other than that,
I thought it was just really neat. And I think this is probably the part that you were more intrigued by as well, Illeagle. The idea of, first of all, working through different missions and kind of picking, what path you want to go and how to build your character. And it seems like you have a crew and kind of building your own story, because you got to have a backstory for your character. And I think that while there are a lot of games based in Roman times and Greek times and you're doing battle, there hasn't really been a whole lot of gameplay focused on, what it was like to be a gladiator back in the day. And it's not necessarily all glory. You start out and you get captured sometime as a slave or something, and then you're thrown into this pit and you have to try to survive for people's entertainment. And I think the story potential and character building potential here is the part that really sticks out for me. And I do for me, the first roguelite game, I don't have a good answer to your question, Illeagle. I'm sorry.
Let me do some Googling. Keep talking.
But the first one that I played was Hades, and I didn't think I would like it either, but I think they're obviously very different styles of games, but from what I could tell of the system in this game, it seemed like a very similar style of progression where it's more or less you get to choose what dungeon you want to move into based on the benefits and perks that you might get out of winning it. And I don't think, based on just the style of play, it doesn't seem like you're necessarily going to die and have to start all over from square one. But I think it'll be more maybe you die and then you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out a new path or something like that. I think I saw there was a demo out there for this game, and I might give it a whirl just to see how that progression system works, because if it is something where you lose all of your stuff and you don't have some carryover progression in games like Hades, I think that would be kind of frustrating. But I'd have to give it a whirl to try.
They had showed the risk and reward system with regards to, if you bring your weapons into battle, you can guarantee that you leave with them, but you can't always guarantee that if you lose. So I think that's what the risk reward system is with regards to progression saving, is each one is sort of a roll of the dice on how you want to progress as you battle, which I think that's interesting. I think you can choose to be conservative and guarantee you hold on to your weapons, or you can risk it if they're stronger or not. And it's just, I like that aspect of it. I think it adds a strategy element that's sort of unexpected.
Well, I think if that's the case, then I will enjoy it. But a lot of roguelike games, or roguelite, I'm sure Illeagle will tell us in a few seconds what the case is.
Maybe.
But a lot of them, if you die, you basically lose everything. All of your stats are gone. All of your equipment is gone. Any progress you made is gone. All you got is the knowledge that you gained along the way. And I don't like those. Those games go bite it.
A couple things. The difference between roguelike and roguelite is it's a long explanation.
TLDR?
Apparently it is something that the terms are interchanged a lot, and that's incorrect. And the broad strokes interpretation that I'm reading is that roguelites with the T are a little bit less stringent in their like interpretation. So roguelites and roguelikes are both kind of based on this foundational gameplay that was kind of laid out by a really old game actually called Rogue, that has, random map generation, permadeath, turn-based combat, a lot of things that typically go into roguelites and roguelikes. Again, there's more to this, but what I'm reading very quickly here is that roguelite is a more loosely defined version of that. So it goes a little easier on you, essentially. I will say one thing that kind of got me about this trailer too, it has this like, I think I would call it a cute graphical style, and then someone dies and they're like, you're going to die a lot, which I struggle with games like that. And that's like, again, one of the reasons I don't really go in for roguelites a whole lot, but the person's head like exploded off their body. Like it was pretty violent. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't necessarily dislike it. I just thought that was interesting. The other thing that I think is interesting about it and kind of gives me pause is when I think Gladiator, right? And this is probably my own mental shortcoming, but when I think Gladiator, I think, no, it was Russell Crowe, first of all. I think of a dude fighting a dude in an arena, and then like Caesar like puts the thumb up or down kind of thing. These are like huge battles. There's like 20 people fighting each other at the same time. So like at that point, maybe this was part of the risk and reward stuff. I was Googling roguelites, so I wasn't listening with 100% of my listening capability. But like if you're in one of those gigantic battles, right? Are you right in the thick of it, just swanging that thing around? Or are you like on the outskirts, maybe shooting an arrow or two, maybe slashing where you can? Like what is the risk reward there? Like what benefit do you get from like killing the most dudes? Is your goal just to survive? Because if your goal is just to survive, then I'm chilling on the outskirts, waiting for the correct opportunity to strike.
Well, I think that's going to be part of the strategy. And I think that your goal is to survive. And based on like what mission you pick, there's different, I guess, rewards. Like I think there's monetary rewards from what it looked like. So that if you went a certain mission, like it might be easier, but you'll get less money than if you took a harder path, and you'd get more money to potentially upgrade your stuff or get more gang members.
So basically the main takeaway is always get in the thick of it and swing that thing around.
That's I think where this game's going to live or die, and it sounds like you were agreeing, Nerdbomber, is like what we don't have a huge sense from, this trailer is a minute and a half long or something. We don't have the hugest sense of like where the depth of this game is. We saw a lot of like skill tree stuff, a lot of board gamey looking stuff, all that physics-based combat, kind of random mission generation, like a lot of really cool things. But what is the core gameplay going to be like in terms of strategy? How do you attack a mission where you're fighting a large group of dudes? I'm sure there's some nuance to it. Do you take certain missions, like you said, based on which one pays more, which one's more dangerous? There's probably a balance there, but to be determined by anyone who wants to sign up for, get it now via Steam Early Access, or people who want to get it when it launches. I don't know when it has a wide launch. Go check it out. And if you've ever wanted to be like Russell Crowe, now is your best chance, potentially.
Or Gerard Butler.
Gerard Butler was the 300 guy, which is like, I would say that's Gladiator adjacent. Like he wasn't a gladiator.
Yeah, they were Spartans.
Yeah, but I mean,
I was referring
if you
to the
put him in the arena,
he is like a gladiator in that one.
He was was that White House Down, or is White House Down the one with Channing Tatum?
I don't know. There were a couple
came out
different
at like the
times
same exact time. The White House went down like 3 times in 1 year. One of those years, in like 2017 or something. It was like a big year for that sort of movie. So yeah, whichever one. Hey, here's to you, Gerard Butler. Law Abiding Citizen, also a very good Gerard Butler movie. In any case, we're gonna move on now to our break. But before we do that, I would be remiss if I did not shout out our fantastic Patreon producer, Mr. Stephen Keller. Stephen, as I've mentioned, is going to be joining us real soon on the show. That is one of the perks he receives as part of his night level subscription on our Patreon. He gets this producer shout out. He gets weekly input into the game segment, of course, monthly access to the secret segment and the vlog, but also that coveted occasional guest spot in which he gets to come on and share some opinions with us, share a game segment with us, have a bowl full of laughs, or at least a cup full of laughs. Coming up very soon. If you want to be like Stephen, you can subscribe on the night level to our Patreon. You can also subscribe as a Squire level patron on our Patreon, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment and vlog. And there's also a page level of access, which gets you access to the monthly secret segment. Details on any and all of these levels of support are found over at patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast. You want to be like Steven, you want to get that guest spot, you want to come on and beat me in a quiz. It's not that hard, but it still feels good. That's what she said. Let's take a break. Thanks again to Steven. We will be back in a few short moments to talk about Control 2.
Late at night on September 27th, 1977, Three terrible things happened in the small town of Garrison. An infant was stolen from its crib, never to be seen again. A forest fire sparked just a mile down the road, and the first in a series of grisly murders rocked the town. All had one thing in common. They were perpetrated by what those in the town called the Shadow Man. I'm going to bring you along on my investigation into just who the Shadow Man is. Welcome to Strange Trails. I'm your host, Finn Mitchell.
Control 2, sequel to Control 1, also known as just Control. Remedy Entertainment has confirmed that this is in development for PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. We all played Control. Yeah, am I misremembering that? Nerdbomber, I'm almost positive you did, but I could be wrong about that too. Techtic, did you play Control?
I watched
Did you Control?
I have to say, before we hop into this, missed
please.
Opportunity instead of calling it Control 2, and they still have time, but like they could have so many puns, like Control Z to try to like undo stuff, or Control Alt Delete.
That's good.
You know, like, come on, you can do better than Control 2.
Yeah, like Mission Control.
You could even
Control
do
Freak.
Control Z, but make the Z look like a 2.
Ground control.
And then it's like double.
To Major Tom.
We'll let them stew with that. I'm sure they're listening. But it's funny, looking back on, because Control, this was a good 3-4 years ago at this point. Am I misremembering? It feels like it was a long time ago that I
It
played
feels
this
like
game.
a while ago, yeah. I want to say, did it come out during the height of the pandemic? Like lockdown? No?
I think it was well before.
Was it really?
I
feel like I played it during lockdown.
Let me do a quick Googs. It came out in August 2019, so pre-pandemic.
Okay, but that tracks because then I got it for Christmas.
About 3 years.
I got it for Christmas, so then that would work. That tracks.
And that might have been what happened to me as well. I honestly don't remember. Control, it's funny, like looking back on it, I really enjoyed the experience. It had a strong narrative. I remember two things about it. I didn't love the ending. That was thing one that I didn't love about it. And thing two, this game was freaking hard. I remember there was one mission in the game, and Nerdbomber, I'm wondering if you'll remember this. There was one like boss fight in this game that it took me so many tries to beat.
Were things like flying at you? Like
things were
Dementors?
flying at you, and it was like there was a guy like trapped in a fridge or something. It was a whole. Do you remember what I'm talking about at all? Or am I It's it's gonna bother me so much now. I have to Google it. Control boss fight
in a fridge.
It's like in a fridge or something. Fridge duty. No, it is fridge duty. It's the worst. You're fighting something called the Former. It throws crap at you. It has gigantic spider legs. I remember wanting to throw my PlayStation 4 out of my window of my apartment. So yeah, I'm thinking back to where I lived at this time, and I lived in my apartment, which was again 2 moves ago. So, but Control was great. Control 2 is an obvious choice. The budget for this game is $52 million. I don't know that we often talk about budgets for games, but some context. Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, which won a bunch of Game of the Year awards, $81 million. Red Dead Redemption, again, very well acclaimed game, between 80 and 100 million. So 52 million is not like up there, but it's like pretty high.
I feel like that makes sense though. Like the first Control, it won a bunch of awards, and I think it was kind of like one of those, I don't want to call it like a hidden gem because it definitely wasn't. It got all the hype once it finally came out, but I don't think people expected it to be as good as it was.
Right.
Because
it came out of nowhere is what I do remember about it.
I'm trying to think was Quantum Break the last game that Remedy had worked on before Control? I think it might have been. And like, I enjoyed my time with Quantum Break. I don't remember if you got around to playing that while you still had an Xbox.
I started it and did not finish it.
I mean,
that was my experience.
I thought it was good. I thought the TV show aspect of it was a little gimmicky, and I can see why not everybody loved that, because then it broke immersion, because then you had to sit there and watch like a half-hour episode of something and you're like, what? So like, I get that. But like, I think coming off of Quantum Break being so meh, I don't think anybody assumed Control would be good, and then it was. So I can see them now throwing a bigger budget to make a bigger, better version of it.
Yeah, not only does this make sense, but it makes dollars too.
But
it was a cool idea, Quantum Break was, but yeah, the execution, I definitely struggled with, like you said, kind of just being ripped back and forth out from under it, essentially. And yeah, looking at it, by the way, that was the last game before Control came out. So yeah, I would say it's fair to say this kind of came out of nowhere at the time. People didn't see it coming, but yeah, it did win a bunch of awards after that, and it was a super cool game. I loved the ambiance of it, and I'm guessing now we're going to get an even higher quality heightened experience from Control 2. So very excited.
I think
no
one of the things,
direct information about when it's coming, but yeah.
One of the things that Remedy does really well, and this is Alan Wake, Quantum Break, Control, I think they do a really good job at bringing like fun and interesting gameplay, because they always have that like kind of, is it telekinesis when you can control things? All of their games have like some sort of element of telekinesis, and then there's like the supernatural aspect, and you kind of have that mystery of a story, and as you play, like you pick up little bits and pieces of the lore as you go, and eventually like things kind of become clearer as you play. And I think that to me is really cool, because a lot of game stories can't pull that off when they try to be too mysterious, and it's just kind of like annoying. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the neat things with Remedy is that they kind of blend, you know, your average everyday shooter with this supernatural element and give you a really cool story that keeps you engaged. So I'm really excited to see what they do with Control 2, because I remember really wanting to know more. If I'm trying to, I don't want to spoil the first game for anybody, but I feel like there were still a lot of loose ends and things that weren't completely explained that I want explained. It was super interesting.
You're being too gentle. I thought the ending was bad because it left a lot of loose threads, and I remember it was very abrupt, and I was like, wait, that's the end?
But I think that was purposeful, because I think they were planning on weaving a bigger world. Because if I'm also not mistaken, like some of the lore pieces and like papers that you picked up along the way hinted that there was a direct connection to some of the events in Alan Wake and Quantum Break, and that I believe in one of the interviews, I might be wrong, somebody fact check me, but I want to say that Remedy basically said that all of their games exist in this interconnected world. So I think that was like done on purpose, because they wanted to revisit and like flesh out a second game. Granted, should you do that? Like, should you wrap up a game and kind of have it be self-contained with the possibility of having a second game, or should you kind of leave a cliffhanger if you know you're going to come back to it?
Again, I think this game, I don't know that they expected this game. Like, you shouldn't make a game expecting there to be a sequel. I just don't agree with that on principle.
Is there the risk that this is actually like, this is just a poorly executed money grab and it's not going to resonate as well as the first one?
I don't think so.
No, not for $52 million. I have enough faith in them for that. Also worth noting, there is a 4-player cooperative PvE title that they announced last year that takes place within the Control universe using the same game engine. That I'm also super excited about, because cooperative PvE is a fun jam for me. So I like the direction Remedy is going with this franchise. I just want the stories to be better. Like, I shouldn't be that harsh. The story in Control was good. The ending, I don't know. I don't even know if I want to give them that much credit to say that they were like planning a sequel. I think they were just like, we don't know what's going on. Let's cap it off here. It's a vague ending, but it serves the purpose of an ending. It felt very unsatisfying to me. That's what I remember about it. But Control 2 may make that better. And if not Control 2, maybe Control 3. And then there's going to be Control Avengers and Control Endgame, Control Infinity War, etc. Missed opportunity on Control Z. You weren't kidding. Now I can't stop thinking about that, because the Z could look like a 2, like you said.
Right?
Remedy, you know where to send the royalty checks if you steal that idea. Actually, you don't. We don't have an address. We don't announce that on the podcast. That would be weird. But if you want to send us a royalty check, by all means, reach out to us. At Online Warriors 1 is our Twitter account. We also have at OW86, which is my account. At OW Techtic and at OW Nerdbomber are my reliable co-hosts. Hit us up there. Any of our listeners can hit us up there to talk about all things Control, all things We Who Want to Die. Is that what that's not what it's called. I keep getting it wrong.
We Who Will Die?
The hell is it called?
We Who Are About to Die.
We Who Are About to Die. That's because they don't want to die. Or Ash Ketchum being the world champion. Hit us up. Let's talk about what we've been up to in the meantime. I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Techtic. Techtic, it's your week to go first, I guess. I don't know. I don't keep track of this, but it feels right. So go ahead.
So mine's going to be ridiculously short. It has just been grinding for me. I have just been basically
like on
just
a skateboard.
Yeah, sure. I've basically made a divot in my couch, just staring deeply into my Switch, playing Breath of the Wild. It's still going. I'm going to finish it. I am determined. I'm 3 beasts down, 1 to go, and then the final boss, and then I'm good. But it is a grind. And it's a good time. I'm actually starting to like it. Now that I'm becoming like powerful enough to walk around outside without getting the snot kicked out of me, I'm actually starting to enjoy it. So I can kind of see, I thought there were a lot of just crazy people out there, but it just takes a little bit to start to enjoy.
But see, this isn't an endorsement. Like this is my issue with Zelda games. You're like, I only had to play it for like 60 hours and I'm finally starting to enjoy it. It's like, that's too long, man.
Think about one of my all-time favorites of the last couple of years, Metroid Dread. It was a grind. It was not an easy game,
But it didn't take that long. And also I thought it was fun from the start. It was a grind though. That's a good point. It was a grind. And so I remember I complained about that on
There's
the
nothing
show.
wrong with grinding-esque games. It's just, my biggest comment with this one is that it didn't really, like, you had to Google how to do a lot of stuff, but then once you kind of got comfortable with it, it's an enjoyable game. So that's my main thing. I've just been grinding away, and I will finish this, folks. I'm notorious for not finishing games, and this one I will finish.
Yeah, we have to move on because it's raising my blood pressure just hearing you talking about having to Google how to do parts of a game. It doesn't sound like a game. Which, like, I know that's the hottest take on the universe. Is that Breath of the Wild is not a good game, but that doesn't sound like a good game to me.
It's a good game. I take it back. It's a good game. Just chill.
I'll calm down. Let me decompress by giving my update. I read a book. That's it. That's my update. I read a book.
What book?
I read The Midnight Library. I was late to this party. I think this book came out like
you read this
either
last week,
year.
too.
Or the year before. Did I read it last week? I wasn't finished with it. I finished it a couple days ago. It wasn't that good.
Really?
That's like my broad.
That feels like a contrarian take.
This is a hot take. I just I don't.
Did you have to Google how to read it? Is that why?
No, I see what you did there. It just on page maybe 20 to 25, I was like, I can see so clearly where this is going to end up. And then I wound up being right. And that's not satisfying at all.
Was it about the journey more so than the destination? Was it one of those type of books and you just didn't appreciate the journey?
No, it was more so, it was at the end, they were like, this is the moral. You learned something because you wound up in this spot. And I was like, I didn't learn anything because I already knew that this spot was the spot that she should wind up in. And, I knew that. So I didn't learn anything. That's too harsh. It wasn't a bad book. It just, I expected more out of it based on all the hype. And I didn't think it was that good. The concept was all right. I liked the concept. I didn't love the execution. Conversely, I watched a movie that I greatly enjoyed, and I did very much appreciate the execution. There's a movie called See How They Run, which is currently on HBO Max. It is a whodunit. So if you're into mysteries, which I very much am, I love Knives Out. I now love this movie. I'm very, very much looking forward to Glass Onion. This is kind of my amuse-bouche for Glass Onion. This was really, really enjoyable. It's a whodunit that plays heavily on the tropes of whodunits to what I would say is great effect. Sam Rockwell is in it, who I like a lot and who was particularly good. But the true show stealer was Saoirse Ronan. I may be pronouncing that name wrong because her name is impossible to pronounce, but I gave it my best shot. She was really good. So I would recommend that. It's also an hour and 38 minutes, which I want to applaud a movie for not being over 2 hours. Like my wife and I were talking about going to see Wakanda Forever, which for all I know, maybe you're about to talk about having seen Wakanda Forever. I don't know. But one of the reasons we decided against going to see it is that it's 2 hours and 43 minutes long. And hey, look, that's too long.
That's a good couch movie.
It's especially to go to a theater and sit through the previews and do the whole. It's that's your whole day. It's like your whole day is shot. So it's an entire afternoon.
Honestly, I don't want to say that they've done themselves a disservice, but I almost feel like because they have Disney Plus now, and you know that the movie is going to hit in the next 2 months or so on Disney Plus, and you can now watch these 3-hour epics from the comfort of your own home and on the comfort of your own toilet with a pause button when you really need to wee. I feel like
you're watching movies on the toilet?
No, I'm saying that instead of using a strange theater toilet, you can just use your own toilet when you gotta pee halfway through the movie, and then you can pause it and not miss anything. It's great. I like my own toilet better than other toilets. There, I said it.
And
who doesn't?
And if you have to throw up in the middle of the movie, you can do that from your home toilet too. Fun backstory here. One time I went to a movie with Nerdbomber and I threw up in the middle of it.
Yes, he did.
The Intern, starring Robert De Niro. The most random movie on the planet. Got up in the middle of it, went to the bathroom, and threw up.
I was like, wow, I didn't realize the movie was that bad.
I'm fine now. I'm all better. But it was a rough experience. Anyways, that's my update. I read a book, I watched a movie, and one time, like 10 years ago, I threw up in a movie theater bathroom and Nerdbomber was there. She wasn't in the bathroom with me,
no,
but she was
I
in the theater. Yeah. Anyways, Nerdbomber, let us know what's been going on in your life.
So I watched a movie and I played a game, and I'm still reading The Winners by Frederick Bachman, which is the final book in the Beartown series. Haven't finished it yet. It's very lengthy compared to the first two. But I did try to play Overwatch 2, and I also tweeted about this, and I'm just a little confused. I don't understand what I'm doing, and it makes me feel really dumb because I'm very experienced in first-person shooters. I should not be as confused as I am. But I've never played the first Overwatch. I'm just getting into it. Overwatch 2 is free to play.
I don't want to shame you. If anything, I want to shame myself. Are we too old? Is that what the problem is?
I really don't think it is, but I think it's one of those cases where maybe if you didn't hop on the bandwagon in the first one, you're just out in left field for the second one. But there's all of these heroes, which is a cool concept. You've got your tank, the shooters. They do a lot of damage. Don't remember what the class is called. Then you have your support class, and within each of those classes, you have a myriad of characters to pick from, and they all have different skills and abilities and different weapon styles and shooting styles. So one, you don't get to change weapons. You're just locked into whatever skills and weapon that character has. So one character might have a sniper rifle, and that's all you got with their special abilities. Another one is pistols, and that's all you got. The other one is a shotgun type thing, and that's all you got. You can't switch weapons. You have to get good at that character and those skills.
As the person who had watched you play, I will not say that you were too old to play this. No cap, the way she yeeted the other players,
Oh my gosh.
Well, okay, no, I don't even know what that means. But
what did you say before too? You're trying to youth the podcast up. You said something before too that was very, very zoomery.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is. Anyways, good job with the youth outreach.
But the entire concept of the game, so it's very team-based, right? You have an objective. You're supposed to work with your team. That's why there's different classes. The support class is supposed to keep everyone else alive. The tank class is supposed to basically absorb damage, while the damage dealing class goes out there and kicks butt. But you're supposed to chaperone. That's not the right word, but you're supposed to escort. You're supposed to escort a payload or something through the map. And
I actually prefer chaperone.
You're supposed to chaperone, or you're supposed to defend it, so on and so forth. But every time I get into a game, it doesn't feel like anybody's working as a team. And I know I'm really bad because I don't like putting my mic on during a game. So part of it's my own fault. But even you can ping people using the D-pad, so you don't have to talk to communicate. And nobody is playing as a team, and they're playing a deathmatch game, and then you just lose, and it's very confusing. And I don't know if that's the point. I don't know. I'm just very confused. That's just where I'm nutting out with Overwatch. So I made this plea on Twitter, but if you have any suggestions how to get good, as the kids say, I don't even know if the kids say that anymore, but if you have any suggestions how to get good, let me know, because I have no idea what I'm doing. And we also then watched a movie, Brittney Runs a Marathon. This is a Amazon Prime original. This has been out for a few years, essentially about a funny young woman who is a little bit overweight, and she goes to the doctor, and her life is a mess. She doesn't really have a good grasp on career, relationships, anything like that. She drinks all the time, and then her doctor basically tells her, hey, you are very unhealthy. You should probably, try to get healthier. So she kind of has a breakdown at some point, and then determines that she's going to run a marathon. And there's obviously funny moments because the cast is all comedy actors, but it was a very heartfelt kind of feel good story. There's a lot of pitfalls and triumphant moments, and it's kind of like a roller coaster of emotions. But in the end, it is a very feel good movie, and apparently based off a true story. So we're always on the lookout for light and funny movies. And I know there's a few rom-coms coming on the horizon, but there's not really a lot of comedies. So, I mean, this was a nice, light, I guess not light, because there was a lot of reflect on your life type moments. But it was a funnier movie and not as investing as a drama or something like that. So
Yeah, we didn't want to leave with existential dread.
Yeah, that's like my big takeaway. I'm going into like the darkness of seasonal winter sadness, and it's like all of the movies are super deep and just dark, and it's like, what is this? So that is me. That is what I did.
That is you. Well, here's me. Here is me having a quiz to host, which is rare for me. Let's going back through the quiz records. Nerdbomber at 12-9, Techtic at 12-11. I'm at 10-17, Steven 2-1. So it's a Nerdbomber v Techtic showdown today. Again, kind of battling for like first place supremacy. I don't want to do the math right now, but I think if Techtic wins, he might be ahead of Nerdbomber at that point. I'll do the math later if that happens. Quiz topic today is Ryan Reynolds, which I very much appreciate because I like him. So let's dive right in. Look, Ryan Reynolds is hot, right? That's just a fact. That's not a question, just a fact. By the way, Techtic will go first because he's lower in the standings. So no, Nerdbomber will go first because it gives Techtic an advantage. That's right. That's how advantages work. When was Ryan Reynolds named sexiest man alive? Looking for a year here. And also, when I typed this question into my phone, I wrote when was he sexiest man alive, but it corrected it to when was he named sexiest man Alice. So when was he named sexiest man Alice, Nerdbomber?
I feel like it was fairly recent. I want to say it was like 26.
Fudge. My number was not intended to be the +1. And that's really frustrating to me because that's like a solid guess. I know who this year's is. It's Captain America, by the way.
Also,
okay,
I just realized
I actually didn't know.
I said fairly recently, 2016, and that is not fairly recently at all. Where is my sense of time?
Is 2 years not
it's
plus
all
one
relative. I don't know how to answer that. I would say 2 years is it's okay distance, but I think Nerdbomber reserves the right to complain. That's what I would say.
I'll complain, but it's technically not a +1, so
It's a really good guess. You know what? 2017.
he used his +1.
A total whiff on the +1. 2010, guys.
Really?
This is pre-Deadpool. This is pre a lot of stuff. He was hot stuff back in the day.
This was his like rom-com era. He was a Hollywood heartthrob before he was everything else that he is.
Yes. So I believe the proposal, which the bonus question is about the proposal. So if we get to the tiebreaker,
that's such a good movie.
Yeah, he
I
doesn't
believe that
look
movie
as good.
came out in 2009.
In 2010, he was not as good looking. I'm telling you.
Well,
he was,
look,
but okay.
But he's also being compared to Johnny Depp and Conan O'Brien in this year, so I'm not quite sure what's going on.
Let's continue talking about how hot he is, but in a different way. How about that? 0-0, going into question 2. What you might not know, one thing you might not know about Ryan Reynolds. Well, I'm sure you know he's Canadian. You know who else is Canadian? A lady named Alanis Morissette, and they dated for a few years back in the 2000s. She put out an album called Flavors of Entanglement in 2008, and it had a song on it called Torch that she later revealed is about him. How many plays does this song have on Spotify?
I really like this question.
Yeah, I dug deep for question 2. I had a lot of fun putting this quiz together.
See, this is what we miss when you lose all the time, Illeagle. Come on. You got to win more next time.
I'll try. I don't know what to say to that.
1 million.
Techtic with a cool mill.
I'm trying to think if people go back that far into her discography. Probably not. But people who listen to it might be listening to it on like CD or vinyl. But maybe, she's pretty popular though, so maybe they do go back and revisit it. Well, I'm thinking because I know what...
I love the inner monologue. Yeah, it's really good.
I know what current hits usually typically run on Spotify within the first like year. And I've even gone back and listened to stuff from the 90s and I know how many plays they typically have. I'm going to be conservative,
as we've established
though.
On this show, I think in a secret segment we talked about how you're kind of a Spotify crazy person.
Yeah, I'm the Spotify aficionado. I'm going to go ahead and say 400,000, but I think I'm just being conservative and I'm going to kick myself if it ends up being in the millions.
Nerdbomber, you dropped the Spotify question. Techtic actually almost got it. He was very close. 1,096,322. So in the grand scheme, I feel like that's very, very close. So it's not the most popular song on this album, but also I haven't heard the title of a single song on this album. And also I didn't listen to the song. I'll listen to it after this. I don't know. I haven't listened to it yet. In any case, Techtic takes a 1-0 lead. Question 3, also kind of only tangentially Ryan Reynolds related, but I'm having a good time with this. What is the proof of Aviation Gin? Guys, he owns Aviation Gin. Or he's like a co-owner. He's like a spokesman for it. That's what the point of the question. What is the proof of Aviation Gin?
80 proof?
That's a bust. It's 70 proof.
Don't sound so confident. It is 84 proof.
Fudge!
So
but I didn't say fudge.
Nerdbomber.
I like my gin.
Nerdbomber almost nails it. Hits the nail on the head. So we are tied at 1-1. And there are 2 questions remaining as well as a bonus question. We're going to continue to discuss his business ventures. How much of Mint Mobile does Ryan Reynolds own? And I'm looking for a percentage here. What percentage of the company does he own?
Oh, this is easy. This is 53%.
Shoot, I was going to say that. I feel like maybe it's not that much, though. I feel like he owns so many different things. 5%.
It's actually a range here, given as 20 to 25%. No one knows exactly how much, but the long story short is Techtic, you busted. So that brings Nerdbomber to 2 points and Techtic to 1 point. Going into the final question, pre-tiebreaker, Deadpool came out in 2016.
I remember that.
When was Ryan Reynolds first attached to and involved in the production of Deadpool? Looking for a year. And Nerdbomber, you would go first.
2012.
No +1s here.
So this is actually a trick question. He was actually working on it for a lot longer than you might think. So I'm going to say Jesus times.
We're going back to Jesus times to great effect. February 2004 is when he was first attached to the project. It lived and died a couple of times, but that was when he was first attached to it. Actually, well before X-Men Origins Wolverine came out. So before he ever appeared as
actually
Deadpool.
knew the answer to this one, but I couldn't remember the exact year, and I didn't want to bust.
Which means
it's tiebreaker time.
It's tiebreaker time. I get to unveil my favorite question, my question about the proposal, which if you haven't seen it, is a Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock romantic comedy.
And Betty White.
I was going to say Betty White's also in it. Also Oscar from The Office. It's something else. This movie came out in 2009, if my memory serves. What is the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes? This is a text-in answer. Give me a critic score on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's out of what?
It's out of 100. I feel like I shouldn't even tell you that. What a silly question. All right. Well, I need to find another question because you both busted. Nerdbomber guessed 69. Very...
With the emoji. Tell them about the emoji.
The tongue out emoji. Very mature and appropriate. Techtic actually guessed 67. So you guys were like unbelievably close to each other.
And what was it actually?
So it was 45. Look, it's a romantic comedy. They're very often not considered all that good. So we'll go with an old standby for the tiebreaker question. How old is Ryan Reynolds? Again, looking for a text-in response. Okay, you guys both busted again. So I have to find another tiebreaker question. And also, are you guys looking at each other's phones? Because Techtic guessed 48 and Nerdbomber guessed 49. And also, Nerdbomber used the tongue out emoji again.
You think he's 49 years old? Jeez.
I don't know. I feel like celebrities are deceptive.
He is 46. He is 46. So you guys were close, but you both busted. Okay, here's a good one. How tall is Ryan Reynolds? We're looking for feet and inches. Don't give me like full inches. I don't want to do any conversions. Okay, we have a winner. Again, both very close. Nerdbomber guessing 6'4", once again with the tongue out emoji. We get it. You like licking stuff, whatever. Techtic got it exactly correct. He is 6'2". So, Techtic, congratulations.
Darn it.
That moves things ever closer. Techtic moves to 13 and 11. Nerdbomber to 12 and 10. I believe that means that Techtic is now in first place overall.
Nope, still in second.
No? Am I terrible at math?
Percentage-wise.
Okay, percentage-wise, you're still in second, but you close the gap, or you're in the process of closing the gap. So congratulations to Techtic. He will host our next quiz. Yeah, in the meantime, we thank you all for being here. For continuing to support the show, both by listening and by leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, and maybe by heading over to patreon.com/onlinewarriorspodcast, checking out how you can give back to the show over there. Again, our Twitter handles are @onlinewarriors1 for the main show account. I am @OW-Illeagle86. We have @OW Techtic and @OW Nerdbomber. Let's have a conversation. Maybe a conversation about Techtic's tech tip for the week. Techtic, take it away.
Be like Garfield. Hate Mondays and love lasagna.
Have a great week, everyone.